Okay, we are live. Little red light is on. The numbers are clacking away. I got a voice. The view meters flipping when I talk. Uh, everything's all set up. I think we're ready to go. I'm not ready to go, but the studio is, so I guess I gotta follow suit. Hi. Thanks for being here. Uh, uh, I've already done the introduction to this. The channel. I'm your host, Verde Arbusto. This is Human Resonances with Verde, with your host here, Verde. I'm a hot mess. I don't know what I'm doing. Thanks for being here. I'll try and make this entertaining for you. Like I said, I've already done the introduction to this. This is the one of the multiple ones in a series. 5, 6. I forget now. I'm up to, but I'm at the point 1.6. I think I've done 5 already up to this point. And This is a personal one for me. Again, this is kind of a birthday present from me to you, my humble listeners, members, subs, whatever. My guides say it's time to do some exciting stuff while you're here. This is the mission objective stuff right here. This is the advanced, well, there, the advanced work that I came here for, that it's just time to know. Okay, well, what do I say by advanced mission stuff? I've explained this briefly. Generally, I've in this video series, I've explained it briefly. In other places, I've explained it in more detail. But essentially, the way it works, as I understand it, this is how it works for me. This is how it has worked for me. That the contract that you agree to prior to incarnation here, the soul contract agreed to prior to incarnation here, has different phases or different levels to it. That is kind of like, school here, regular school. There's different levels of difficulty. There's certain mandatory fundamentals that you have to take care of. Otherwise, you're not graduating. You're not ascending on. You're not moving on. You got to repeat it all over. So there are some basic requirements that each person has that I think is similar for the same or roughly similar for everyone across the board, whether you know it or not, or whether you do it or not. It's up to you. But as I understand it, the first most important layer is your lineal family uh, uh, ancestral DNA clearing, meaning of your free will. You can't commit the same mistakes that your family has just simply because they're your family and you're going along with them and you feel bad. You have to, of your own free will, make the right choices, make the right decisions, and be an individual and stand up for what's right. Okay, so that's the most basic way to put that. And then you have other, fundamental objectives you got to meet, like a certain person you have to marry, have kids, like that kind of thing, right? Lineal things. All right. So, and then after this, you have other levels, like your life's goal. What is the mission for your life, your individual, with your individual skills. And that would be, if you're going to be a writer or a doctor or, your occupation, but that is a fulfilling part of your life that no one else can do. You're kind of a specialist in that field. Or you just have a knack for it, or it's your thing or whatever. Like that's a certain, level of karmic, contractual obligation that needs to be fulfilled. So after that, then you have, some of us have the advanced work that says, for example, like me, it's obvious you can kind of see what the advanced work for me is, but if you don't know, if this is your first video, I do the technical breakdown of Schumann resonances, atmospheric electromagnetics, and I make it extremely, or as best I can, understandable to the average person, and break it down to how you can understand it the best that you can. So this is the advanced work, and I've written a lot, 2+ years on, we're getting in close to 3 years now of 2019. Yeah, November it'll be, we're getting on 3 years now. I've been writing and working on just the Schumann resonances in detail. And then on top of that, like, that's advanced enough just to be able to figure that out and break all that down. Like, that's advanced enough. But then there is more stuff that's like this, where I got to talk about what's happening from the big picture, the celestial big cycle, right? Which not many people know about, and certainly the people who can explain to you about how the Schumann resonances work are likely not going to be able to explain this to you in a way you can understand it and digest it, hopefully. So this is, this here, the part one of this, and it's going to be kind of, this is like I think I have 4 parts here, like, there's a lot to it. And I'm just giving a personal introduction. This is my birthday kind of to you, like I said. So I'm giving some more personal stuff here. That's, like I said, the advanced work. That it is not the technical, scientific, tech of the Schumann resonances. But this is what you might call metaphysical, philosophical, Gnostic. I'm not even sure what you would call this, but it's definitely not the regular other stuff that I do. I wanted something from me that's personal from me. And my guide said, "Oh, good God, it's your birthday month. You need to do something that you're going to be happy doing, right? I've been having a little trouble finding joy and happiness, as everything's going through what it has to go through and everything's breaking down and whatever. I just needed something to be happy that I could do that is going to be like, what? We're on our life's mission here. That's what's kind of what we're doing here, right? Let's do my life's work here. All right, so, and part of that is, this may not be the advanced work, but I get to, meet my karmic goal or my karmic obligation of being a DJ and playing some really hot, great music, like the Aronmix here. And this is the brand new one this is the brand newest one from the 23rd of October. He doesn't have a name on it, but it's just the 23rd of October. So, because his channel is an Aronmix vehicle, it's a vessel for Aronmixes, I'm gonna play one now. So I will meet you on the other side of this, and this is, like cigarette break. Like I said, I play these to get people here into this, so I don't know, like 10 minutes or whatever. So I will see you in a little bit. The Mouse.
But I man, I hate to do it. Oh, this is really good. This is really good. I think I'm gonna just nudge it back a little bit so we can restart the groove back kind of where we get up that climbing altitude, where kind of where we left off. All right, so onward and upward. Lights on, numbers clacking, played music, got that written. Yeah, and so behind me, you could see before, before I put my big face here, you could, I don't know how much of it you can read. Hopefully you can read it. I can read it on my computer, so I'm hoping you're not more blind than I am, or your screen is clearer than mine is. I can read it here. All right, so that's what I'm saying. And so it talks about the DNA and the mutant. It doesn't go into a lot about the mutant DNA. It just says that it can mutate from the pairings. It can mutate, and sometimes it doesn't get passed on. But other mutations can create the new, a new genus. Like a mutation can help you survive something, whatever, like this is how the process sort of works, is the ability to have mutations. So under normal circumstances, the mutation would come from maybe I should say the natural order. If things are working properly, the mutations would potentially come from the two originating gene set of the parents and their genetic offering. All right, this is the genetic mutation that's possible through a pairing of the DNA to create a new life. Right. So me, for example, my parents' DNA. All right. So having mutations is possible within the normal course of that. Now, as I've said before in earlier parts of this series, that with the weakening magnetic field, it creates a loosening or a weakening of the ionosphere, which is kind of the shield, the most direct shield. It's an electromagnetic shield between the sun's direct output, the raw plasma that comes from the sun that gets held up in the ionosphere, as more of that kind of raw, it's like crude oil, if you will. Like the analogy is crude oil. And so if you can picture that type of a plasma stuff coming and hitting us, bombarding us directly, like, yes, that will likely cause mutations. It does. And they've have empirical data on the fact that the EMF does create, changes on the cellular level, and it does create possible mutations if the power level is strong enough. And that's in a rarefied form. And if you consider that what's coming to us from the sun is, a plasma, which is usually held intact in the ionosphere, no longer it's coming to us. There's your mutations. There's your possible mutations. And again, as I mentioned, easily within the course of my lifetime, before I was born in the 50s, they had started making movies and entertainment vessels to billboard, essentially, to broadcast, in essence, what the plan was, what the basic state of affairs is in the illuminated ones, the Gnostic, the modern Gnostic circles of the intelligentsia who are running the show down here. And so they have basically been essentially directing, channeling, running the show, running the infrastructure have been broadcasting, and billboarding to you their intent, and either the question is the intent man-made, or is it warning you, you know, that the possibility of mutations is there from either the solar influence or from any one of the chemicals that the forever compounds that they have introduced into the soil, introduced into the atmosphere, right? So the 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 theme of mutants and superhuman, genetically modified super soldiers, genetically modified heroes, genetically modified villains, genetically modified people, mutants, all of that has been around before. I was born in '68, so before that, they're talking about the '50s. There was, Godzilla originated in the '50s and early '60s, right? Like, just and a lot of the creature feature movies, like I said, were in black and white. And these are some of the earliest television. Uh, yeah, it's entertainment, sure, if you want to believe that. But like I said, they're not spending. You can believe it's entertainment if you want, but it's not, and don't call it that. You can believe you're being entertained. They don't spend billions and billions, up to trillions, on entertainment just to keep you entertained. They're warning you, they're telling you, they're broadcasting it, they're giving you the playbook of what you can expect 20 years down the line, or 10 years, or maybe 5 years in some cases. you know so this is something that is really important for you to know, for it to be understood, that these folks who are in charge are intending on poisoning you, and with all of it, with the EMF, the electronics, for the purposes of stunting the DNA growth and potentially causing mutations in a non-positive direction of the non-angelic type. I'll just put it that way. And coupled with the fact that the New Age agenda would have you just be a docile clone without any free will, or without any ability to think, or without any gumption to stand up for what's happening. Pretty much, it's like it's a there's, I don't even have the words for this. It's a battle for the humans, for the soul, and for the genetic material of the humans. And that's the most important thing to remember, of why they're trying to put you in a lull, because if they take your ability or your will to challenge what's happening, then they can use your DNA for what they want, right? You're not using it. You don't care. Like, you believe it's some good purpose, even though you don't really know what it is. With rhetoric, they convinced you, they confused you. With rhetoric, they confounded your ability to think and process rationally what's happening. And then they have you kind of scoop you up, right? You're not challenging it. You're not using it. You're right. You just might as well be a battery for the power center, right? You've given up your free will, your birthright as a human, of picking and choosing the best course of action for yourself. And that may be escaping what is otherwise becoming a prison planet. Perhaps. I don't know. It's up to you. I'm saying maybe, perhaps. All right, so 2852. All right, let's get into the material. Not only within the course of my life, All right. Not just within the last 20 years, right? Within the last 10 years, but just before my very eyes, I've seen like everything, almost the majority of stuff uprooted, ripped up, torn out, flooded out. Things I cared about, the garden, my God, there's, at this point, I've lost track of everything that's been either taken from me or absconded or uprooted, um, or ripped out. Like, friends passed on, families passed on. Like, it's just not the same world I grew up in. Things that I've loved dearly have been removed. People I've moved, I myself have had to move a bunch of times, uh, taken away from me through some, a lot, or none of my doing, my responsibility. Much of what's changed for me has been the loss of the majority of the people I've known through my life, right? So they're like pretty much, except for my older sister and my nephew and nieces, who I don't really talk with them. They're young. They're definitely younger than me. Like I didn't really connect with them. They're wonderful people, but I didn't connect with them. But my immediate family, my sister, uh, I had two sisters. The older one still left, and I have to say, she is what I would call, or we affectionately call, the $6 million woman, the bionic woman, because medical science is keeping her alive. She has an artificial valve, and she's been into the hospital a bunch of times. So she's still alive through medical. She actually died. She died on the She died on the operating table, and they revived her while she was under and all that. She doesn't remember any of it, but they she should, realistically, she shouldn't be alive. She has a special condition that most of her peers who have the same condition have passed on before her. She's 55, she's 55. So, uh, so my sister is the person I've known the longest. Next to her, like everyone else is gone, and then it's pretty much the people that I've met in the 12 years since I've been here in the state. So the longest friend I have is 10 years old at this point. Everyone else is gone. you know uh my list of the longest known person I've known the longest is getting shorter every year as people who are younger than me pass on. And there's more than one person who's younger than me who's passed on. Society itself is changing and morphing in front of our eyes. History is being rewritten before us. And I've talked about this, I believe, in this series here, mini-series, that history is being erased and rewritten in front of us. It's canceled, books are being burned, everything is being thrown like the water barrel. Like it's just being thrown out. um, we are we are starting a new great year, and it all excuse me, it all has to be somehow in its own way made new, which is easier said than done. So a good example, the college, the Ivy League college on the hill, they bought literally a block's worth of buildings. It was 8 beautiful Victorian buildings. They tore down that whole block of those 8 Victorian, beautiful architecture buildings, tore them all down, and in place they did a ploppable of a brand new type of prefab type of building and created a whole block of just their property with gates on it. So it wasn't so it wasn't 8 individual properties. It's one property now with a courtyard, and like it's just being done all over the world, all over everywhere. Just either the Mother Nature is taking out stuff, settlements, flooding, or the humans are doing it to themselves, either or, it's, all things are being made new. It is not until this very time here at this millennia that the magnetic poles are drifting into opposition of where they've been for millennia. So the magnetic poles have been, they kind of waver a little bit, but they stay up there in the north and down there in the south and whatever. But it's basically 1859 at the Carrington event that they started shifting notably, and they've been speeding to their new location, which is pretty much an opposite, not quite opposite exactly, they're not quite swapping, 180 degrees, but they're changing locations in a new place. All right. And so that's essentially what they're talking about, is that it's been quite a long time before the, 12,000 years or something, or 30,000 years, whatever, that the poles had moved since last time. And it's overdue. They've been meaning to be swapped for a while, but it's, like all things in their proper time, and now is the proper time. It's waited for this time, like it's waited and waited and waited, and now, like they're racing to the new location. It's just like they're, the poles are not patient. They're not patiently waiting at this point. They are rapidly shifting location, moving to a new location. It's waited until this time for a huge confluence of events to congeal to this point in time. There's numerous forces at work, some on the Earth, some in the greater heavens, and the galaxy as a whole. So, like from the central sun, whatever, all of this timing-wise conspiring for things to happen now. That's kind of what I'm saying. There is such a thing as the galactic sheet, which is an immense gravity wave from the influence of the central sun. And it's part of the galactic magnetic sheet is that it is pretty much designed, I guess, to flip the polarity of the solar system, right? Or our sun, the solar system. It's one of the things it does. This happens periodically. This happens cyclically. This happens periodically, and it's just it's that time. If the majority of people had a program of principles within which they operate, then society would be able to handle all this in a more sane, rational way, but they don't. I'm here hopefully helping to give you some principles for you to operate by. All right, so we're going to play a little bit of music, and then we are going to move on to the next section, and then, which isn't that long. Yeah, it's not that long. So, let's play some music, an Aronmix, stretch your feet, get a cup of coffee, and I'll meet you back in a little bit. All right.
And from this groove came the groove of all grooves. And while
Okay, let's pull it back, pull it back. All right, let's pause this. Okay, we're good. All right, I'm up here. Live. All right. So over, I had in the background of me before I got here, the precession of the equinoxes, right? So, I'm going to be explaining this a little bit more later on in this series here, like if I ever get out of the historical stuff. This is going to be a long, lot. This is a lot. I wrote a lot. This is going to be a book. There's a lot here. Hopefully you like stuff I do. That's all I'll say. Because this is significantly different than the other stuff. You know, like I said, this is a birthday kind of gift from, not only me, but from source creator, the rainbow light guy at the forest of the amethyst flame, us both are here giving you a thank you for being supportive and just for being wonderful, and just because I need to do this. So onward and upward. All right, so 4325. And I call this changing logics because rhetoric is changing logic on people, and it's not a happy experience in many cases. Logics are altering, changing, morphing. Emotional quotient. This bullshit statement here, right? It's being pushed off as a thing. It's being foisted upon you as if it's actually a real, true thing, that emotions can be quantified as a quotient somehow. And yet, what does that mean? Right? Because the people who talk the most about emotional quotient can be some of the most childish and immature motherfuckers there are on the face of the planet. I will just put it to you simply, in the most straightforward manner I can. The people squawking the greatest about emotional quotient are generally the most infantile, childish ones out there. In my personal, humble experience, as I have found, right? It's better off not to go through that portal of emotional quotient. As far as I'm concerned, if you lead a good spiritual path, you are an emotionally balanced individual. We start coming up with these rhetorical phrases like emotional quotient as if it's something you can measure, like an intelligent quotient. Like, see the mental gymnastics they're doing with the kind of the phrasing, the two phrases right next to each other, so you get a little bit confused or discombobulated. So you think, oh, hey, emotional quotient, it sounds a lot like an intelligence quotient. Yeah, as if you being in control of, you, as if the emotional response to something is exactly the same as an intellectual, intelligent response, right? And yet, there's no standardized test for it. If you want to use that as a thing, that's fine. Where is your standardized test for for evaluating emotional quotient? Please tell me. Where is your standardized test used for evaluating the efficacy and validity of emotional quotient? Question mark. I don't know either. It doesn't exist. At any rate, onward and upward, emotional quotient is not a real, actual, practical thing. It's merely a rhetorical concept used to try to justify or rationalize emotional behavior that, generally speaking, is antisocial. I'll put it that way. Logic's becoming fuzzy. You can have fuzzy logic. That's either this or that, neither this nor that, these kind of things. All sorts of wackadoo things are happening due to a number of variables that may be difficult to quantify.
The swapping poles and weakening magnetic field are the two biggest factors affecting mankind that are coming directly from the Earth, comma, and not of necessity the Schumann resonances, which are orders of magnitude more subtle than what's just been mentioned. The so-called climate change is being caused by the 1-2 punch of the swapping poles and the weakening field. Okay, so climate change, as they talk about, is in fact it is actually the swapping of the poles. And as things are getting worse and worse, it's not due to the temperature. Their temperature models aren't able to predict what's happening now with the water. Like there's a lot of stuff that the global warming models aren't able to figure out. And they just say, oh, it's warmth shifting, or it's the warmth that's shifting the cold, when I learned in 8th grade that or they say it's the cold, the heat moves the cold, right? Okay, so that's how the global warming is able to create record cold in places that it had never been cold before. And the problem with that is that you don't have enough temperature in the globe to move stuff to where you now have a record, where it wasn't a record before. Right? Just for the the warmth pushing it, I'll accept that maybe that can happen. However, the warmth is lower, right? It's denser, and the cold is higher, right? So you can't, except for where it's at the poles, it's the warmth itself is going to stay lower than the cold air, which is, not as dense. So there's issues they got to work out with the global warming creating record freezing in places, right? That's not something they're able to discuss because their models don't anticipate that. It just says everything is going to be warming all over the place. And the problem is they're having record cold, and a lot of times where it's also record heat during the day. They get record cold at night and record heat during the day. A greater range of temperature than their models are able to predict as well. So there's also a number of things that are also going on as well. The liquid water, finding the lowest spot, which they're not able to predict as well because they don't take that into consideration. The water just gets vaporized, evaporated. As I was saying, water is likely to be one of the biggest problems that we may face in the upcoming years. Lack of it where it's needed and an abundance of it where it's not. The Bible tells us, quote, there will be rivers in the desert, dry land where there was none. Land shall appear, the mountains will crumble. It's just everything's going to be flipped upside down, as does happen periodically, as does happen cyclically. The spirit, and I would propose this as a postulate. The spirit, the soul, knows it's time to exit stage Earth due to the confluence of factors. This is the reset that's murmured of. So when we talk about the Great Reset, right, that's what we're talking about here, is the planetary reset, and not some stupid political try and grab more of your currency reset to lock you even more in place as some type of a beast of burden, as a resource to be taxed and to be extrapolated as a resource. That's not what's future at store according to the planet. The planet has a different idea of what a reset means, and because again this happens cyclically, periodically. If you don't believe that this is something that happens periodically, I feel sorry for you, because you're looking at the reset being this global elitist agenda that they're trying to push on the average everyday person, as if your life isn't bad enough, as if it's not already too much like a prison as it is. They want to take away even more of your rights, even more of your money, get you to eat bugs, and wow, wow. The miserable state that they have planned for humans at this point, it's not worth sticking around here for, quite honestly. What they have planned, the reset that these global elitists, for lack of a better phrase, want for you, is not anything worth living. And you better hope that the earth has your best interests in mind, that it does something that the humans are too afraid or too stupid to do something of themselves about. That's what the reset is for you. It's hopefully to give you a chance, a fighting chance, where you haven't given you, largely haven't given yourself and the rest of humanity a chance, an ability to fight, right? Like that's part of what the New Age agenda is to take away your ability or your rights, your privilege, your birthright, to get you into believing some bullshit rhetoric that the Schumann resonances are going to magically make you ascend, because they're basing this bullshit agenda on misinterpreted data. And that's a lot of how this is allowed to permeate the discussion, and to readdress the discussion, is because it's misappropriating scientific data that you can't otherwise read, that isn't proving what they're proving. They pull it in. Oh, see, the spikes here, the color and this show blah, 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 blah. And then you're dumbfounded because you don't know any better. And then they use that information against you as a way of taking away your ability to choose of your own self. And so because, well, the data says this and the readout says this, therefore, it's ascension energy, and if you just suck it in, you magically fly away. Whatever means it takes to get you to no longer question, no longer fight, no longer challenge. There are many vessels and vehicles designed to take away your ability, your right, your choice, your will to lead your own experience here. And that's part of why the woke agenda is so insipid and it's so dangerous, is because it's passing off, it's more Piscean age bullshit. It's passing off the control of, your personal control. It's passing off to the collective consciousness, which is ill-defined at best. No one can define it. None of you know. Certainly not anyone, that hasn't followed my channel. None of, they just don't know. You don't know, right? You listen to humans, they come up with all kinds of snare you bullshit, right? It's time that you made your own decisions and your own choices and your own free will decision to yourself see what the best path is. And again, part of the ancestral lineal clearing is you picking your own pathway based on what you know to be the right thing, and not what your family or some relative tells you is the correct, proper way to go. So the reset that they have planned for you is not the one you want to be a part of. Yet, not the one they're envisioning for themselves, for you. This would be the woke one that would see you, the woke, go woke, go broke. I'm glad a lot of people are finally seeing this bullshit agenda for what it is, the woke agenda. That it's the one that's seeing you have nothing and being happy about it. They're taking away your movies. Most of Hollywood has just been gutted. The talent of Hollywood has been gutted by the woke virus. what was once great, TV, like Saturday Night Live. It's just, just, like just MCU, like all of it. It's just falling like dominoes, right? So it's my humble view that this is the time where Satan or the devil is given the free realm, free range in this period here, that you can take whoever you can before the final calling of the trumpets, right? This is my personal view. I'm not the only one with it, but I really truly believe that this is like the gates of hell have been opened, and here to take whatever souls you can, right? I really truly believe this is something that's I can't prove it, but I suspect this is a thing. That calling will mark the final bell. So the final call of the trumpets will mark the final bell of reckoning, right? Just no man knows the day or the hour or the time of its coming. It appears like a thief in the night, right? So they say, beware, be wary at all times. Don't drop your guard. It comes like a thief in the night. So be ready at all times. The final call makes the final accounting of all the accounts. And I've talked about what the accounts are. The last holdout. Hollywood is trying to, kind of redeem itself by going woke, and it's like not doing the clearing that it needs. It's just trying to put a new wallpaper on it and call itself woke. And, but the problem with woke is it tries to preach to you how you should live. Meanwhile, they're just hypocrites, There's more to it. I'm not going to get into whether they willingly come in or they get swapped over, eliminated into the protocols of the water-bearer age of enlightenment. So they get to come in, either of their own free will or they're going to be called out on the carpet. So anyway, all right. So it's an hour into this. I'm going to play almost an hour. I get 45 seconds. So